Hi, everyone. Hello. My name is Rebecca Stummy. I'm the senior producer for live programming and events here at LAist, and I am so happy to see you all here this evening for the Story Collider. So that's enough from me. I'm going to turn it over to your incredible host for this evening, Bryan Kett.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you. I'm Bryan. I'm going to be your host for this evening, and this is going to be the greatest night of your lives, guaranteed. So, little housekeeping if you haven't been here before, just based on what Becca had said earlier. So, Story Collider, we are a nonprofit organization. We are headquartered in New York City. And we have these shows all around the country, all across the UK. And so in this country, it's from Boston to Seattle. There's about a dozen cities. And what we do is we have these live shows. And a lot of this hopefully goes on our podcast. That's the intent. So this is being recorded with all these cameras around the room. You can watch the show after at the same link where you bought tickets. That'll go up tomorrow. So thank you very much for being here. So Story Collider's mission is to essentially humanize science. Right, it's been a long time since any of us have been in high school chemistry. It wasn't a great time when that happened, I would imagine. As a student, it wasn't a great time. I used to teach high school chemistry, and it wasn't a great time. So no one, spoiler alert, no one was having fun on either side of the classroom. But we're here because if we can humanize science and we can really see the personality and the humanity behind it, we demystify it, right? Because science really does impact all of us. Right? So then we kind of pull back that curtain because we really are in all of this together because of science, right? That's kind of what our ethos is. That's what our mission is. So what we do is we have these live shows. You're going to hear 4 stories tonight. And some of these tellers that we have, some are working scientists in STEM fields who are brilliant and inspiring, and some are just regular folks like me who have a scientific story to tell because science does impact all of us. So tonight we're going to have 4 storytellers. We're going to hear from Tracy Drain. We're going to hear from Christopher Moncayo-Torres. We're going to hear from Jess Nurse. We're going to hear from Paul Davis. They're all sitting over here in the crowd. I'm going to come up, master ceremonies in between all of these to kind of get us shifted around this. The thing is, every Story Collider show has a theme. I don't like to put the theme out first. I'll just let people, we'll work through stories and be like, that theme works. Cool. We'll kind of work our way into it. So tonight's theme, spoiler alert, is Don't Panic. I think it's kind of appropriate for the current state of the world. And if you ever forget about what the theme is, you can look at my pin tonight. This is a pin, if we can all just get a good look at that. It says Don't Panic. Someone told me that it's the font from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Who knew? But I bought this pin when I was in college. I was in Physics 101. It wasn't going great. I ended up teaching physics, which is another... thank you, Illinois State Board of Education. And I was so frustrated. I'm so frustrated, I'm going to go for a run, which is desperate if you know me. And so I made it about a block before I got out of breath. And I stopped, and there was a garage sale. So I went to a garage sale. I just ran to a garage sale. That's how I kind of soothed myself. And I was inordinately sweaty for running just a block. But I remember coming up, and I was digging through this box, and this pin was in there, and it was for $0.25. And I said, I will buy this pin. I forgot all about it until we came up with this theme, and I said, wait. And I called my mom and said, hey, wait a minute. If you go in the shoebox, underneath the stairs, is there a pin that says, Don't Panic? And she's like, what are you doing? So anyway, I was able to get the pin. I'm wearing it for the first time tonight, and I told Becca, who introed the show, that at the end of the night, I will pass off the pin to her. It's going to be a passing of the torch because some things are best shared. I just made that up right now. Isn't that nice? How thematic is this? This is so good. So, anyway, along those lines, I was thinking about the theme and all this, and I really started thinking about teaching because every day teaching in Chicago was just one panic after another. The bell's going to ring at 8:12. It doesn't matter if you're ready or not. They're going to come into your classroom. They're going to destroy you over and over and over again. Nothing mattered. And so I taught just outside Chicago. It was a very rough high school, a lot of gangs in the high school. And my kids didn't care anything about anything I said whatsoever, except one kid, this kid named Nathan, who was he was just as curious as I was at his age, and we really got along. He was my favorite. You shouldn't have favorites, but I did. And while Nathan's peers didn't care at all about anything we were learning, Nathan channeled his love for science through one very specific avenue. It was Back to the Future. And the fact that the movie had come out more than a decade before he'd even been born did not keep him from going home every day after school, watching the movie again, and then coming back to school with a bunch of questions from me about time travel. And then Nathan and I would sit down and we would talk about time travel. And then, of course, we would laugh about the cardinal rule of time travel, which is, like, as outlined in the film, never meddle in the life of a former version of yourself, as the implications could be disastrous, very ominous. And at the same time, my parents were holding a party for their 30th wedding anniversary, and they had a costume mandatory Halloween party. And people were flying from all over the country, including my parents' friend Bob, who, like, with his constant mockery, was kind of like the uncle that I never wanted. And the thing is, though, I hadn't had time to get a costume together yet. I was so busy with schoolwork. I was busy grading lab reports for chemistry class that claimed that the 3 subatomic particles were not protons, electrons, and neutrons, but rather protons, electrons, and croutons. So, like, I was just mired in this, like, what am I doing? And so I was really kind of at a loss. I needed to get a costume, and I'm walking out of school. It's the day before Halloween, October 30th. It's the day before my parents' party, which is also on Halloween, and there's Nathan in the hallway. And he's talking to some tougher kids. And when I'm walking by, I overhear Nathan say that he was planning on wearing something really special the next day for Halloween. And I just slowed my pace because no one at that school dressed up for Halloween. Like, I'm like, no, you can't, it's going to destroy you socially, buddy. So I slowed my pace, just willing him not to say anything embarrassing. And when I heard him say that he finally saved up enough to buy an authentic red puffy vest, like, my heart stopped, because he was going to dress up like Marty McFly, from Back to the Future, Michael J. Fox's character. And I couldn't tell him not to do it. Like, he was too excited. He'd saved up money for this. And I couldn't tell his peers to go easy on him, like things would get way worse. And so in this moment, this crux, I thought, what can I do? So I took action, just like resolute, that the only way to avoid this potential catastrophe would be if I were to dress like a more homely version of Marty McFly. So by comparison, Nathan would look cooler. And I could knock out 2 things at once. I could get a costume for my parents' party. I could help out Nathan. It was win-win. So on the way home that day, I stopped off at Salvation Army, and I got the checkered shirt that Marty wears, and I got the jean jacket that he wears, and the Nikes that he wears in the movie, those weren't at Salvation Army. So I wound up buying were these, like, white orthopedic shoes. And then just taping Nike swooshes made out of construction paper to them. And they didn't have the big puffy red vest that he has in the movie. So what I wound up buying was really just more of a life preserver. And at school the next day, in the entire building, there were 2 people dressed up for Halloween. And they were wearing the same costume. And when 5th period rolled around, Nathan looked great. He looked like he walked right off the movie screen. And my plan worked, as any animosity that would have been directed towards him came to me, as I heard over and over again how much better his costume was, how much cooler he was. So Nathan and I talked about the movie, and of course we laughed about the cardinal rule of time travel, as always. And I left school that day really pleased and proud for having helped out someone I saw a lot of myself in. And that evening I walked into my parents' party to find like 100 people in these ornate costumes that had taken months to sew by hand. And I just looked like a guy who couldn't afford Nikes. And a guy who was just, like, afraid of drowning, just on land. And so I slunk to the bar, not really wanting to draw attention to myself, and I turned around, and there was Bob, my pseudo-Uncle Bob, and like a shark smelling blood in the water. He picked up on my insecurity. Even like he was dressed like a mermaid, and he wore it so well, to his credit. And he just looked me up and down. He looked around the room with these lavish costumes, and he said, "Why don't you care about your parents' anniversary?" And I was like, "Good one, Bob." And I thought the worst was over. I slunk away. But then at dinner that night, he just raised his glass and a toast in this room of 100 people, and he thanked everyone for coming. And then he pointed out how great my costume was and how much time it must have taken, which just drew laughter and jeers from the whole room. And as I was sitting there just kind of overwhelmed and kind of humiliated and wishing I could just disappear, it dawned upon me that I had inadvertently lived out the plot to Back to the Future. I had meddled in the life of a former version of myself in Nathan, which had in turn set off this chain of events that had negatively impacted my future self. Like, that's the plot to the movie. And I had talked about the cardinal rule of time travel over and over again, but I hadn't honored the cardinal rule of time travel. And so the implications, as one would expect, had been disastrous. So thank you. That's a little panic story for you. We have a wonderful show for you tonight. Thank you so much. Here's the thing. I met our first storyteller when I did TEDx Pasadena a number of years ago. The director of that, the best, Heather, she's here tonight. You have other royalty in the room, just saying. But I've been asking this teller to do this show, and the schedules never work out. They're very busy, and it finally worked, and I'm thrilled. And I mean it. We had like a rehearsal last week just on Zoom, and I said, this person is distilled sunshine, and I stand by that. Here's their bio. She's a systems engineer who's helped develop, test, and operate a variety of robotic spacecraft over the past 25 years. She serves on the planning committee for the National Academy of Sciences Science and Entertainment Exchange and the advisory boards for ASU's Interplanetary Initiative and U of K's Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering Department. In her spare time, she enjoys reading, taking long walks, watching random shows, primarily sci-fi documentaries and Korean dramas, studying languages, Spanish and Korean. If you see her on the street, please don't hesitate to teach her a joke in either of these languages. I love that. She works at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, where she's currently the chief engineer for the Europa Clipper mission. Please give so here's the thing. Before I say this name, okay, it's hard to go first. Now, here's the thing. My job as a host is to warm up everyone, and I killed, clearly. There's no doubt about that. But I need everyone to go just absolutely ballistic for, like, this person who's so near and dear to my heart, okay? So please give a very warm round of applause for Tracy Drain.
Hello, I am Tracy Drain, Chief Engineer of NASA's Europa Clipper mission. When I first started working at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory as an aerospace systems engineer, I was motivated by the wonders of space and the challenges of solving thorny technical problems. Now, I'm living my dream to explore strange new worlds, to boldly send robotic spacecraft where no one has been before. Europa Clipper launched in October 2024 and is on a 5.5-year journey to Jupiter. Once there, it'll study the moon Europa, in part because scientists think it has a huge ocean of liquid water beneath a shell of ice. Geordi LaForge, chief engineer on the Starship Enterprise on Star Trek, is one of my childhood heroes. My job is kind of like his. 1, identify technical risks that could threaten the mission. 2, make sure they either can't happen, or if they do, we can do something about it. It's kind of like disaster planning in space. Example, what if something went wrong with a telecommunication system on a robotic spacecraft and it couldn't receive a signal from the Earth? If it just sat there doing nothing forever, it would be game over. So, as one safety net, Clipper is programmed to take action if it hasn't heard from the Earth in a certain adjustable amount of time. It'll go, something must be wrong with me, and start resetting and swapping hardware in an escalating fashion, which is great if there really is something to fix. But it can also leave a bit of a mess to clean up. And there's always a tiny chance there will be unexpected shenanigans. So we really don't want it to do that unless it actually has to, if there's something really to fix. So give me a second. We really don't want it to in case there is actually a problem. This past January, Europa Clipper was only 3 months old, and we were still checking it out, operating flight activities almost every weekday in order to make sure everything on the spacecraft and the instruments was working properly. Tuesday morning, it was windy, really windy. It was the Santa Anas. Driving into work, I could see bits of tree debris and hunks of cardboard blowing past in the wind. But I was still surprised when I got to the lab to see what looked like half a tree had come down and was blocking the main entrance. So I had to back up and drive all the way around to the east side. And there I could see and hear the gritty soil on that side sandblasting my car as I gripped my steering wheel to stay in my lane against the gust. But eventually, I joined the rest of the team trickling into the operations building. Like me, everyone seemed cautiously alert, but upbeat, ready to just get going with the day's activities. Happily, everything went great with the activities that day, but we did hear that the winds were intended to peak the next morning, so we opted to shift the next day's start time to 1 p.m. to be on the safe side. Now that night, an email went out to all JPL employees saying that fire had picked up in Eaton Canyon, and because of the high winds, could move fast, so no one should come into the work that day. It was much closer to the lab than the Pacific Palisades fire that had happened earlier that day. So the Clipper mission manager immediately sent out an email to the entire Clipper operations team saying, clearly we were waving off the activities for that day and everyone should just take care of themselves and their family, stay safe. At my house, a little bit farther west in Glendale, we went to bed worried. The next morning, we woke up to a disaster in progress. The fire had spread much farther, much faster than anyone had anticipated. People had been and were being evacuated. We were getting little update emails from folks from their cafes or from the homes of friends and families. And then another email went out from the lab saying that not only was JPL closed, but it was being fully evacuated. Everything was being completely powered off. Even the operations facilities, they were not even being left on backup generator power. Now, this had been practiced in drills, but had never been done before in the entire history of the lab for real. And I was stunned. I was like, wow, JPL is going dark. And then I thought, oh no, Europa. Now, the JPL managed ground stations all around the world that handled the data coming down from spacecraft of all sorts of missions, including Europa, were still operational. It was still collecting and storing that data, which was great. But with JPL offline, that data wasn't being sent anywhere. And so our operations team, scattered as we were, could not remote log in and see it and check on the state of the spacecraft or communicate with it in any way. It was like we had turned off our end of the baby monitor in Clipper's crib, which was gonna be a problem because we were gonna have to get a message to her. In case we reset it, this baby spacecraft would start acting out, just as she was programmed to when her timer expired on Sunday morning at 8:24 a.m. Disaster planning. It's about priorities, knowing what is important and not, what is time critical and not, having a plan E, a plan B, and so on. So, priorities. I was really proud of our Clipper leadership team that we immediately, unequivocally put our team and their safety as priority number one. We now waved off even all the virtual meetings on Wednesday and told everyone just do what you gotta do to stay safe. At my house in Glendale, we were lucky. We were not in immediate danger. But the sky overlooking our usually lovely view of downtown Glendale was pitch black with smoke. We downloaded the Watch Duty Fire app. We turned on CNN. We packed go bags in case the situation changed dramatically. Priority number two, figure out a path forward for the spacecraft. Plan A, send a command to Clipper. So we had a command built that would set the timer to 14 days, which is cushy, essentially telling her, hey, your parents are kind of busy down here. Please don't start doing all those things. Just chill out for a while. You're fine. It's not you, it's us. Plan B, be ready to deal with the fallout if we couldn't get the command sent in time. Now, plan A was complicated because it would mean you had to get the power up at the lab, check out all the ground equipment, make sure it was working, boot up the servers in the mission support area for Clipper, and then, finally, hit the button to send the command file through the ground stations across 25 million miles of space to the spacecraft. Plan B is complicated because if you needed it, it meant Clipper would have started doing that hardware swapping. And so whenever you could get a command to her to stop that, you'd have to figure out what state she was in, see if any unexpected shenanigans had happened, and then regardless, spend a couple of pretty intense days commanding her back into happy baby spacecraft mode. I did not love Plan B because now we had over 90% of the necessary steps worked out from before launch, but you can never have every last detail of every contingency scenario ready to go before you need it. There's just too many possible permutations. And besides, whenever you're doing complicated activities, there's a small chance of an unexpected problem. Now, this is our job. We literally do this for a living. But past experience has taught me to strongly prefer the simpler options. So, as complicated as that first option might have sounded to you guys, I was all, come on, plan A. But because we couldn't be 100% sure that would pan out, we had to work both paths simultaneously. After reaching out to our mission management via text and emails that afternoon in and around the chaos, I reached out to a set of folks who were still ready and able to work. And we set up 2 teleconferences for early the next morning to start fleshing out the plans forward. Then I am now Geordie LaForge. I am answering the call from my captain, wrangling the engineering team, making sure everyone knew what to do in order to send them off to work out all the details. Early the next morning, we had our telecoms and then everyone was off and running. And now I become a little bit like a spider in the web, keeping my fingers on the threads to sense what's going on, being ready to give guidance and advice as necessary. Over here, plan A. I learned that the Clipper project manager had communicated with the JPL lab director. She understood our situation and people were going to work to try to accommodate our timeline. Okay. Over here, plan B. I learned that folks on our team had brushed off the what exactly would Clipper do when timeline and identified some actions to follow up on to make sure we were really ready to execute the necessary steps. And then over here, checking in on the people in general, we learned that this person had no power at their house and was working from a cafe. This person and their family was staying at the home of another team member. This person hadn't been heard from yet. And so on. At my house, sky's still black, Stevie's still on, showing CNN with horrible images of the fire, and the western edge of the evacuation zone is creeping slowly towards our house. So that night, we set an alarm to wake ourselves up every 2 hours, just in case things change dramatically. And on into the next day. Over here, plan A. We learned that brave, dedicated people were heading into the lab wearing respirators because of the terrible air quality. Good. And then over here, plan B. Our folks had realized that we were missing a couple of command products, little prepackaged files for the spacecraft that we didn't have on the shelf and we needed to make. But we couldn't make them until the power was up and the servers were back on, so that was going to elongate the recovery timeline a little bit. And then here, checking in on the people in general, now we started hearing terrible news of more and more JPLers confirmed to have lost their homes. But also, people were ground roots creating GoFundMe pages for them to already start trying to help them out. Priority number one, putting the people first. And so on it went. Text mails, voicemails, emails, phone calls. And finally, we got a little bright spot of news. Over here, plan A, we heard that the power was back up at JPL. Yes. So I kept my hand on that thread more and more. And as time continued to tick by, we learned that the ground equipment had been checked out and was working. Great. And then the servers were booted up in the mission control area. And then our people were able to remote log in and restart all the software. And finally, the command was sent. Clipper was set to just twiddle her toes for 2 weeks if necessary. Plan A for the win. Yay! I had such a huge release of pent-up tension and such deep gratitude for the folks who pulled together to pull this off in this insane time. I was still a bit shell-shocked because of the damage the fire was still doing to the communities, and my heart was so warm for the support that people were already offering to the evacuees and the people who were now unhomed. When I first started working at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory as an aerospace systems engineer, I was motivated by the wonders of space and the challenges of solving thorny technical problems. But after all these years, the thing that has kept me doing this very demanding and sometimes incredibly stressful work has been the people, the dedicated, brilliant, warm, funny people who make it all worthwhile. This really brought that into sharp focus for me. I cannot believe it has been only like over half a year since that whole thing went down. The spacecraft is still fine, still on her way to Jupiter. We're still trying to take good care of our colleagues. We remind ourselves that even though the fire doesn't make the news very much anymore, it's still having a huge impact on people's lives. It's going to take years for the people and the communities that were hardest hit to fully recover. Europa Clipper will arrive at Jupiter in April of 2030. That's a long way still to go. And the universe is going to continue throwing surprises at us, both in space and clearly also here on the ground. I personally hope that as we continue to face those obstacles, we do our best to keep putting the people, all of the people, first. Thank you.
Give it up for Tracy. She's the best, you know what I mean? I don't lie. Just to underscore that point, yeah, just the resiliency of the community. No, it's not in the news, but I mean, we're still in it together. We're not going anywhere, right? It's just, day by day, and we will get there. But yeah, it's an important, I just felt that kind of murmur go across when you said that. It's absolutely true. So thank you for articulating that. Just a note about Tracy. Normally, I'm working with tellers, I have to track down drafts. It's like, hey, we just talked. Can we talk in 2 weeks? How about in 4 weeks? Or how about this? When do you think you can get it to me? After Tracy and I decided to work on this, we had coffee, I received about a dozen Google invitations for milestones, for check-ins, for deliverables, for outlines, for talking points. It was nuts. So this is just to say, if you ever have to do anything, highly recommend doing it with a systems engineer from Jet Propulsion Labs. Soft recommendation. If possible, please do it. Give her one more round of applause. So I met our next storyteller at After the Moth main stage last year. I told him I was going to introduce him as this. He's like, what? And I said, I'm going to do it anyway, and here I am doing it. Okay, here's the thing. He's got like the best hair I've ever seen. And I know that sounds really kind of like just kind of shallow, but he does. And when I see his hair, I'm like, oh, my hair looks like that too. It doesn't, it's fine. I have to reconcile with that every time I see myself, like in a reflection. But you'll see what I'm talking about. So he's an Ecuadorian-American playwright, teaching artist, and live storyteller. He's born and bred in Queens, New York. He's newish to living in LA. Most recently, he performed along his Ecuadorian father in No Sabo. It's an award-winning solo-ish show about rekindling their once estranged relationship despite the language barrier. He's now working on a live-ish cooking show with his mother. He hosts a monthly storytelling workshop show, Fail Better Storytime, at Studious Co-working Space in LAist Chinatown. It's a great show where you can go work things out. More info can be found at failbetterarts.com. He's an instructor for The Moth. He's a host for their Story Slams. He's been on the Moth Radio Hour and the podcast. He won the Moth Slam last night. I'm updating the bio on my own accord right now. Sorry about ya. Please give a warm round of applause for my friend, Christopher Moncayo-Torres. Look at his hair. What a guy, huh?
Because I'm the youngest of too many siblings and a latchkey kid, I always had a deep curiosity about my siblings. We have a large age gap between us. And because of the latchkey thing, we didn't spend a lot of time together. They'd be working. My single mom would also be out of the house. And so I thought the way to get to know them in our home in Queens, New York, was to snoop through their stuff. I was unsupervised. I'm alone in this house, so I would try on my brother's clothes and their Mets jerseys. And my sisters, I would read too many of their journals. And my mother, I looked through her home videos, and I would see movies of them together before I came into the picture. And they have so much family togetherness, and I'm jealous, and I want to connect with them. And I'm thinking, how can I do that? So fast forward, I'm 16. I think the way to do it is to do community service. I am volunteering at the New York City Parks Department. I'm at Forest Park, and they're asking, who wants to be Clifford the Big Red Dog? Parks Department employee's got a box, and he's pulling out a lot of large red fabric. And the most that I know about Clifford the Big Red Dog at this point, animated series, books. Apparently his owner is the reason he's so large because of the love and care that this owner has for Clifford. Good for him. I'm thinking, do I want to be Clifford? Because as they take it out, it's like mangy fur. Like this is like New York City Clifford. Like he's been through it. He's got no paws. There's white gloves instead of hands. There's nothing for the feet. There's like weave eyes that are torn apart. He's definitely been through the subways, you know what I mean? I'm thinking, I want to connect with people. Maybe in this costume, I'm going to feel safe. So I raise my hand. I'm like, I'll do it. Great. So it's a fall festival, and I get in the costume. I need a handler because the head is huge. It hangs down to my waist. I need someone to guide me. You're thinking immediately, kids are not going to like this. They're going to be scared, terrified. They loved it. They would just see this big red mascot thing, and they danced with me. They played with me. The moms are like, take a photo. The dads are asking the same thing. It's a great time. We wrap up the festival, and the handler is a little busy. So I'm just standing there by myself. And for the first time, I'm just thinking in my head. I was so in the moment with the kids and the parents, and something happened where I just start seeing all this family togetherness, and I start shaking in this costume, and I start sweating in my under the white gloves that are in my hands, and I think I'm seeing an absence that I don't have. I'm like, oh, I don't have that family thing. I'm seeing so much of how I don't have it in my life at that time. And heart palpitations are happening, and I'm getting a shortness of breath, and I'm feeling tinglings in my forearms, and I want to pull my head off, but I don't want to traumatize these children. And so I want to cry, and I don't know about y'all, but when I cry, I go for my eyes to wipe away the tears. But if you were outside of this costume, what you saw were white gloves on this big red head just shaking away. Clifford's having an existential crisis. And so I run away. And I get to the bus stop, and it's safe enough that I could pull my head off, but I'm still in the red bodysuit. And the Q88 bus driver just looks at me and he just says, just get on. I go back home, and I'm out of the costume, and I just look at my house, and for the first time, I could just see so much of this loneliness in my life, and I can't unsee it. And I feel like Neo in the Matrix. In the Matrix, he just can see the simulation now. It's all zeros and ones, and so that's all I see, just the emptiness of this house and the absences in my family. And I start doing the movie montage thing of all the times that we just didn't do things together. The next day, I'm in school. I tell a counselor that I confide in. And she's like, we have a therapist on board. Maybe let's get you an appointment. I kept rearranging that appointment. I kept avoiding it. Because once I sit down with somebody, it's going to become really real. And I wasn't ready for that. So finally, they had monitors who got me from my classroom, who guided me all the way to the office. And they were like, great, here's the appointment. I meet Mr. Lihan. Large guy, salt and pepper hair, very confident, straight to the point, didn't mince words. He's hearing me tell him what happened, and he immediately says, like, you sound very self-aware. You should be happy about that. Cool. He immediately says, okay, so it sounds like you had a panic attack and anxiety attack. Are you familiar with flight or fight? Your sympathetic nervous system seems like it got activated. Maybe you sense some danger. What do you think the danger is? And I tell him, I think I'm alone. I think I'm alone all of the time. And he's like, okay, well, are you familiar with the parasympathetic nervous system? I shake my head, no. He's like, okay, you wanna essentially rest and digest. He's using language I've never heard before, and essentially he's like, you wanna ground yourself and distract yourself. So let's get you like a toolbox, a mental health toolbox. And he's telling me to think of a place that makes me feel safe. Where's someone that you feel safe? You ask this for a latchkey kid, that's kind of hard, because you're spending so much time in home, and essentially I couldn't leave this house, so I really couldn't think of anything but the most New York City thing that I could think of, the subway. And I'm like, well, the 7 train. I like the 7 train. It's moving. There's a lot of people in there. I'm not alone. There's a click clacks. He's like, great, what smells? I'm like, you don't want to know about the smell. Fair enough. He's like, but let's use that for now. That's a place you can think of when you're getting activated. And you know what? We did a lot of more talk therapy. And he starts telling me other things, like think about what's in the room, tips of your fingers, other tools in this toolbox. As the years go by, I wish I could tell you that I was always going to this toolbox. It collected dust. I barely used it. I was intellectualizing a lot of things. I could talk about it, but I wasn't really doing the grounding stuff. So I'm past high school, past college, and I'm in the gig economy. I'm a tasker for TaskRabbit. TaskRabbit, for those who don't know, it's when really nice ladies in the Upper East Side ask you to build their shelves, help you to move, other tasks. And so sometimes it's other gigs where someone's like, hey, just do this random thing. A random thing I got was, we need someone for a video. And we're a corporate entity. We're in Midtown. You don't get a lot of details. You just sort of have to press it like Lyft or Uber. You just have to get it before it goes away for TaskRabbit. So I don't read all the details, but I just see like a video. It's a lot of money for an hour. And I'm like, I need the money. Great. I say yes. Then all the details come out. It's in Midtown. I'm like, okay. Doesn't sound anything suspicious. So I go Midtown, 6th Avenue across from 30 Rock. And I'm looking at this big, tall glass building in front of me, and they tell me to go to the 22nd floor. I check in with security. And security right away is just like, hi, do you have ID? What are you here for? And I'm like, I see on the app that it's Scholastic. And I'm like, Scholastic's asked me to be here. He starts laughing. He's like, oh, I know what you're here for. Gives me the badge, put it on my chest. I go up 22 floors, elevator doors open, and I see Scholastic on the wall. Scholastic, book fairs. Okay, I remember that from school. And I'm looking at the app to make sure I get all the details, so I don't really pay attention around everywhere, but I see the person who hired me. Very nice lady. She's like, great, just wait right here. I'll be right back. And she comes back with a box, and she starts pulling a lot of red fabric. And it's a lot of red fabric, and suddenly I'm feeling my chest tighten up, and my arms are tingling, and sure enough, I start looking around the floor that I'm in, and Clifford is everywhere. Because Clifford is the mascot for Scholastic, and he's on the walls, and there's just cut out cardboards of him, and she's giving me instructions, but I can't hear her because all I hear is just my heartbeat in my ears. And she asks me, do you have any questions? And I say, where's your bathroom? And so I go to the bathroom, I'm throwing water in my face, and I'm thinking of the 7 train, but the train is stalled, it's not working. I just feel like I gotta get out of here. and I'm heavily breathing because the last time I was in Clifford, my entire life changed. I couldn't unsee something, and I didn't see it as something that was great. Self-awareness was a scary thing for me. I hear a knock on the door. Hey, are you okay? And I want to say no, but I need this job. If you say no to a task on TaskRabbit, analytics-wise, it doesn't work out for you. You get less jobs. It's a gig economy. I really need the money. And I say, yeah, I'm fine. I'll be right there. She gives me the costume. I'll say this much. When I did put on this costume, this is corporate Clifford. He's looking great. He's got paws, head's appropriate size. I have feet. I don't have any kind of rope holding my pants. Clifford's doing very well. We need you to be in a cubicle. We need you to be in a conference room. They're telling me what the video is. So at the end of their fiscal year, they essentially do like a fun video where like Clifford is just hanging out with the teams, and then they show it to the rest of their teams in sort of a wrap-up of the year. And so I'm with spreadsheets. I've got a little headset. I'm holding meetings. I'm not saying anything. I'm just pantomiming a lot. And I'm thinking, okay, great, tips of your fingers. I'm constantly just thinking of like, just be in the moment, be here. And then they're like, would you like to do a shot outside? I think that'd be cool if we have Clifford like walking down the street of New York. And I'm like, let's do it. So we go down, I take the head off, I'm in the elevator, and I come out of the elevator and I hear the security guard right away. He's like, Clifford. I'm like, shut up. So right away, the team is nudging me. They're like, put your head back on, put your head back on. And it's because there's a kid coming through the revolving doors. And I put my head on back as quickly as I can, and this kid sees me, and with all the joy in his eyes, he just screams, Clifford! And I'm not yelling Clifford. I'm like, no, not right now, because as I see this kid, I'm back at Forest Park, and I'm seeing families together, and I just feel so alone. And he's running, and before I can think anything else, I just feel tiny hands around my waist. And I look down, and I just instinctively hug him back. And I'm holding him, and he's holding me, and we're holding each other. And I'm feeling really connected to this kid. Even though I don't know him, Mom comes in right away. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I right away, I get up so she can hear me. I'm like, we can take a photo if you want to take a photo. She's like, oh my God, please, we take a photo. I kneel down with the kid. I'm coming up with different poses for Clifford. I'm like, I'm really into it. I'm just so in the moment with this kid. And I'm just giving him as much as I can. And the mom and the kid go away, and we do the shot outside. We go upstairs. I'm out of the costume. I'm done with the gig. They pay me, and I thank them very much, and I'm back on the elevator. And I'm just going down 22 floors, and this elevator just has mirrors all around, and I'm just staring at myself now that I'm out of this costume, and I'm realizing I should have used those tools more often, but then I was remembering we don't use should statements. And I realized that now I have this new thing I can put in my toolbox, which is this moment with this kid. I can connect with somebody. And even though I'll probably never see that kid again, I'm always going to have this memory. So it helps me now to ground myself, that I can connect with somebody, and we can do that, even if just for that moment. And so I'm out of the elevator, and I'm still processing things, and I hear, hey, Clifford. And I turn over, and it's a security guard, and I'm like rolling my eyes at this guy, and he's like, hope you have a good day. And I tell him, I'm going to try. I'm going to try. Thank you.
Give it up for Christopher. I love it. I love it. When we were talking about this over coffee, talking about Clifford, then I went down this Clifford rabbit hole afterwards. I'd forgotten all about Clifford. We're talking, why is he so big, right? It's because his owner loves him so much. Who knew? And there's so many Clifford book titles out there, and it's a lot of pragmatic stuff about Clifford. It's like Clifford goes to the grocery. He goes to the circus in one book, which is a little far-fetched, let's be honest, for the giant dog the size of a house. But this is what I think about now. One of the books, Clifford, is like Clifford goes to the vet. It's a very responsible dog owner, right? As one should be. And so this is, I guess, more fan fiction right now. But under the premise of responsible dog ownership with Clifford, one has to assume that Clifford has all his vaccinations, right? And that Clifford also is neutered, right? We can just kind of set that aside. So in this world of responsible pet ownership, you have to think, like, what was that like? Did they have enough anesthesia for this? Were there tools for this? Where did they get a dog cone big enough? Was it like a satellite dish? So now I just think about my own Clifford fan fiction. That's what I do with my spare time. Makes you think. One more time for Christopher. Our next storyteller I met at the Moth at a Grand Slam a couple years ago. We both wound up on the same podcast episode, and we were talking backstage, and then I went home that night, and I put on the TV, and there she was on an airplane in a commercial for AT&T, and it's like, oh my gosh, I know that person on that airplane. She's a Boston-born NYU graduate and a Los Angeles transplant. Her writing career began at the tender age of 8 when she wrote a play about a horse, hosted a play reading, and no one came. That's terrible. Devastating. She's working it out in therapy. Good for you. An actor as well. She's guest starred on several TV shows and regularly pops up on commercials for those shows, so it's very meta. She wants to thank her mom and dad, her sisters Lizzie and Becky, her newborn niece Feather, who's already cuter than the cutest Pixar baby. That's just a fact. Please give us a very warm round of applause for our next storyteller, Jess Nurse.
Hi, my name is Jess Nurse, like hospital nurse. The irony of my last name is that my mom was a doctor. She kept her maiden name, don't worry. Can you imagine? Paging Dr. Nurse, chaos. So I grew up the daughter of Dr. Gibbs, who was she's retired now, but she was adored at her pediatric clinic. The kind of doctor who always took the time, always made sure to figure out what was wrong, made sure it was okay, which is amazing when there's a medical problem. Not so amazing when you're a teenage girl and there's an emotional problem. I would be telling her about some friendship fight I had at school, and she would interrupt me and say, "There's a little discoloration on your left eyelid. How long has that been there?" And then she would say, "That's not a good friend. You shouldn't be her friend, period." I would tell her that I didn't get the part in the school musical, and she would deconstruct my audition. And then she would say, "There's so much rejection in acting. You shouldn't be an actor." I just wanted her to understand that friends are cruel to you because they love you, and acting is soul-crushing because it's a noble pursuit, you know? It felt like she couldn't acknowledge my pain, couldn't see it for what it was. She couldn't understand my heartbreaks, could only treat them like bone breaks, things to be diagnosed and biopsied. So I decided early on, my mom was not the one to go to with matters of the heart, which is difficult whenever I'm in like rocky relationship terrain. I will go to everyone else besides her because I will assume her analytical doctor brain response, and I'll kind of disappear. She'll send me an article like, "This type of lettuce will kill you," and I won't respond with the adequate, "Oh my God, oh no," and she'll deduce that I've been kidnapped. But really, I'm just in my feelings. This happened in college. I had a fight with my college boyfriend, and I said, "Well, maybe we should end things." And he said, "Maybe we should," which was not the correct answer. And I said, "Well, if it's over, maybe you should take your toothbrush." And it was like this Western standoff with him like hovering by my bathroom door and looking between the toothbrush and me and the toothbrush and me. And then he took the toothbrush, and it was over. I was devastated. I was sobbing every day. I was having a hard time falling asleep. I was having a hard time eating. I was feeling awful. I was feeling more and more awful. And I attributed this feeling the worst I had ever felt, to how great our love was. And I would tell people how much it hurt, that it was physically painful. And my friends were like, what do you mean, physically painful? And I said, yeah, it's like this pain in my gut. It's like this throbbing pain. It's like right under my rib cage and right above my bladder. And my friends thought I was being uncharacteristically dramatic. And I thought this was the appropriate gravity of True Love Lost. And to any medical professional, it would sound like I should go to the hospital. My mom, the medical professional, would have told me this immediately if I hadn't been, historically speaking, avoiding her analytical doctor brain response. But after several unanswered articles with titles like, if you cook these beans too long, they will poison you, she finally calls me. And I fess up about the pain. She tells me right away to go to the hospital. And she says, you have to take someone with you. My mom doesn't know this, but me and college boyfriend are in a kind of will they, won't they get back together thing, because college. And I think, okay, he's the one to ask. Maybe this will make us a will they instead of a won't they. So he meets me at the hospital emergency room. And the intake staff asks me what my pain level is on a scale of 1 to 10. And this all already feels so dramatic. Like it's clearly just heartbreak. So I say 7, even though it would be more accurate to say 10. Hour 1 goes by, hour 2 goes by, and I can tell college boyfriend doesn't want to be here anymore. And I'm bummed because he's been saying that he wants this. And it feels like this is the moment to show it that he cares. This is the grand gesture. You know, he messed up with the toothbrush, and now he can chase me through an airport. That's what happens in the movies. Okay, different public building, but same premise. Instead, he leaves. And I am left alone, scared, in a hospital waiting room, disappointed, and my heart a little more broken. They finally bring me in. They do some tests leisurely. Again, I said 7. And the results come back. 8 doctors rush into my hospital room. They say, you had appendicitis. You waited too long to be seen. The inflammation caused your appendix to rupture and burst. We need to bring you into surgery now. I am terrified. I need an analytical doctor brain response. I call my mom. She says, don't let them put you in surgery, which is confusing because they said the word burst. But she knows I'm at a teaching hospital and that they will let Chad, who just graduated, put a knife in my abdomen. Sorry, Chad. And I actually hear her start the car over the phone. I feel this swell of assurance. She says, hold tight, I'll be there. And she drives the 4 hours from Boston to New York in 3 hours and 12 minutes. And on the way, she arranges for me to be transferred to a different hospital, a top surgeon. She lets our whole family know. And before I know it, she's squeezing my hand, and I'm being rolled into surgery. I was scared. But I somehow knew that it would be okay, because my mom was the kind of doctor who made sure it was. I made it out of surgery, but it was pretty touch and go afterwards. I was going in and out of consciousness. I was having a hard time keeping food down and facts straight. I was shivering 1 minute, boiling up the next, but eventually I was out of the woods. And my mom was there the full 3 weeks in the hospital. And college boyfriend came in 3 times. Okay. It's not a fair comparison. a mother's undying love and a college boyfriend's. But it was this clear contrast. The person who left me alone, scared, in a hospital waiting room, and the person who made sure I didn't face a second of it alone. You know, it's not fair. Okay. He was young. We had finals. Subways are hard. But looking at it, it's so strange to think that I dismissed my pain because I thought that love was supposed to be painful. That, like, when it hurts, that's a sign that it's real. We get all these stories about how it is, how, like, the worst that you've ever felt is a sign that it's real, that epic love can feel like dying. But the truest love I have ever known has been my mom's. A love that checked my hospital chart every night for mistakes. A love that brushed my hair when I had visitors, gotta stay cute. A love that was brainy and analytical and doctory in all the best ways. A love that understood that love is not pain. If it's painful, then something is wrong. The truest love I have ever known saved my life and pointed out a lot of new moles on my neck in the process. Thank you.
Give it up for Jess. I love it. During the pandemic, I was having these abdominal pains, like these undulating pains, and I told friends, and they're like, "It's loneliness." And I'm like, "Is it?" So I went to urgent care, and they did a whole panel of tests, and they did a blood draw. They had me give a urine sample, and I can say this is a science show, so we're not. I had to do that, and then into the urine sample, I passed a massive kidney stone, and then the doctor came into the examining room with the sample. And she said, "Look at this." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's crazy, right?" And she goes, she's mad at me. And I said, "Hey, has this ever happened where someone came into your clinic because of kidney stone pain and then passed the stone into the sample that you were going to analyze because of kidney stone pain?" And she's like, "No, that's never happened." And I said, "So does that make me a medical marvel?" And she said no, which is just so rude. Still think about it. One more time for Jess. So our final storyteller I met in 2018 at a Moth event, and he's wonderful. And he would kind of come in and out of the storytelling community. Every 6 months he would appear, and he would just crush it, and then he would just disappear. He was like a cryptid. He was like Bigfoot. And it was like legend would spread. It would be like, "Oh my gosh, did you see him?" And "Yeah, I saw him." And "Well, I didn't see him. Oh, he's not going to be here next time." He's just this very mythical creature. But now he's around more. And I just adore him. I'm proud to call him a friend. His mom drove up from Arizona to be here tonight. I met her in 2018 as well. Wonderful, supportive family. So he's passionate about storytelling. He's had stories on NPR and published in Reader's Digest. He also writes and directs horror movies. His last short won Screamfest and Ravenheart, two of the biggest horror film festivals in the U.S. and in Europe. He's currently editing his follow-up short and raising funds to shoot a feature film. You want to help with that? Great. How nice of you. You can hit him up on Instagram at Paul Davis Filmmaker or gangoflightproductions@gmail.com. Here's the thing. Talk to me after the show. I'm going to encourage all of you to do that anyway. But please give a round warm of applause. Oh, Bryan, don't panic. Give a warm round of applause for our final storyteller of the night, Paul Davis.
"Do you see that little flutter?" she asks as my wife and I stare at the monitor. "That's your baby's heartbeat." All at once, I'm relieved that the lights in the doctor's office are turned off so that neither of them can see the tears that fill my eyes. This moment is the high point of my year, 2024. After several years of trying to get pregnant, my wife and I finally decided about halfway through 2023 that we were going to begin fertility treatment, hoping to bring a baby girl into our lives by the end of 2024. So Gina started to undergo IUI fertility treatments, or intrauterine insemination, where she would take medicine that would stimulate more egg growth in the ovaries, and the doctors would inject the semen directly into the uterus, where it would have a better chance of directly fertilizing one of those eggs. This is basically the medical treatment that you would do before finally resorting to IVF, which we were hoping it wouldn't get to for us. So we were completely overjoyed when the second treatment actually took, and for the first time in 13 years together, Gina was pregnant. But all of that joy kind of came crashing down around us toward the end of the first trimester, when a follow-up ultrasound revealed that the baby's heart was no longer beating. So we were devastated. But once Gina had recovered, at least physically, from the miscarriage, she just wanted to continue moving forward with the fertility treatments. So we did our best just to pick our heads up and keep on pushing forward. But from that point, we were only experiencing failure after failure, until finally our doctor said, hey, this next IUI you do is going to have to be your last, because this path just isn't working for you. So we're heading into November with a miscarriage and several failed fertility treatments behind us, and we're preparing for our final fertility treatment of the year, our final IUI ever. And at this point, Gina says, I want to foster a pregnant dog. Now, I already know that I don't have the disposition to foster. I fall in love way too easily. I'm too emotional. So I say, I don't know, babe, that sounds like a lot of work. It's a sacrifice that I want to make for a baby, but I don't want to be up at all hours, like bottle feeding puppies. And she says, no, it's not like that. The mother takes care of everything. You just provide a safe, warm place for it to happen. And I say, but why now? We have so much on our plates in this moment. And she says, if we don't get pregnant this time around, I need something positive to hold on to after the year that we've had. And sometimes being a supportive partner means putting your wife's happiness before you getting your own way. So we foster Nova, who is a pregnant Chiweenie, which is basically a long Chihuahua. And Gina undergoes her final fertility treatment, and for a couple weeks, there's this exciting energy in our house where there's definitely one pregnant mama under this roof, and maybe there's two. Then Gina goes to the hospital for a blood test where it is revealed that she has once again not gotten pregnant. So now we're looking down the barrel of the end of a year that's been filled with nothing but failure and loss. But it turns out that Nova's pregnancy is actually the perfect thing for us to focus on, because it allows us to sort of mentally separate from our own pregnancy journey and allows us to sort of reset and prepare for whatever comes next, but it also gives us the ability to kind of just focus our attention on something else. The only problem is now Nova's pregnancy is holding too much importance in our lives. We need this pregnancy to go well for our own mental well-being. The day before Thanksgiving, I step into the hallway and there's a dark splotch on the ground. So we call our friend Becca, who's a veterinarian. We describe the discharge. We say that it's thick and black. It's almost like tar. And she says, okay, Nova has definitely lost at least one of the puppies. It is most likely lodged in the birth canal, and the others can't get out behind it. So you need to rush her to a hospital because all of their lives are in danger. So ultrasounds and heartbeats and news that we don't want comes flooding back into our lives as the doctor tells us that there are 4 puppies inside of Nova, but they can only detect 2 heartbeats, and they're very faint, so they have to operate right away. So now Gina and I know that we've already lost one of the puppies, and at this point we're thinking that the best we can hope for is that 2 survive the procedure. So then we just sit and we wait for hours until finally they bring out Nova, who has a big Frankenstein scar across her belly and a big plastic cone around her head so she doesn't mess with it. And she's totally doped up on drugs, but she's fine. She made it through the procedure. And then the doctor comes out a little while later, and he's holding something wrapped up in a blanket. And he walks straight over to me, and he sets it in my lap. And I look down at the 3 puppies that made it through the procedure. He tells us that it's 3 girls but they're not out of the woods yet. It's going to take a lot of hard work and attention to make sure that they make it through the next several days, and at any point, we still might lose any one of them. And I look down at this writhing mass of alien embryo-looking things. They don't even look like dogs. They're so small they can fit in the palm of your hand, and they're blind and they're deaf and they're furious and screaming, and all of their screams sound like little squeaky toys. And I look down at these bizarre creatures, and little cartoon hearts pop into my eyeballs. And George Michael's song, Father Figure, cues up in my head. And I think back on my 2024 and how I have nothing to show for it. No goals were accomplished, no personal milestones. And in that moment, all of my priorities for the rest of the year shift. My writing, my filmmaking, our own pregnancy journey, all of that is pushed off to the side, and I only have one resolution for the rest of this year, and it's that all three of these fucking dogs are gonna make it to 2025. And then the doctor says, oh, one more thing. The mother is not producing any milk, so you're going to have to bottle feed them. I shoot an annoyed glance over to Gina, who refuses to meet my eyes. She's pretending like she's listening intently to what the doctor has to say. And then our lives instantly become dominated by bottle feeding puppies, which at first we have to do about every hour and a half. So the next day is Thanksgiving. Our Thanksgiving plans are canceled. We're bottle feeding puppies. Christmas, bottle feeding puppies. By New Year's, we're still bottle feeding puppies. And not only is Nova not producing any milk, she doesn't recognize the puppies as her own, So we'll like hold the puppies in front of her. Hopefully she'll make some kind of connection, try to clean them or something like that. But she's like, get them out of my face. And at first it's like sad, oh, she's not having this mother-daughter connection with her babies. But then it just quickly gets annoying because as our alarms are going off at like 2 o'clock, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, she's at the foot of the bed looking at us like, excuse me, some of us are trying to get some sleep around here. So she was just at her house on vacation. She wants nothing to do with the babies. Nova was the physical embodiment of that phrase, fuck them kids. So Gina and I are just doing everything on our own. And here's what they don't tell you about bottle feeding puppies is puppies don't know how to go to the bathroom on their own. That happens when the mother cleans them and her tongue cleans their private parts, and that stimulates the pee and poo glands, to use the technical term. This is a science show, right? And that's what makes them go to the bathroom. So we're not just bottle feeding puppies every hour and a half, every 2 hours. We're also simulating a mother's tongue by taking wet, warm paper towels and rubbing it on their private parts until they piss in our hands and shit on us. And the worst part is, every time I do it, I hold them in one hand, clean them with the other, they look me right in the face, and they just scream the entire time, as if I'm violating them, or like they're calling for help from their sisters, like, he's doing it again! And I get it. I would not want a giant to pick me up after every meal and rub my butthole, but I'm trying to help you. Because if you don't do this, they literally fill up like little water balloons, and you have to lay them on their back and rub their tummies for like 45 minutes until they go. But as disgusting as it can be and as frustrated as we get and, as exhausted as we are, we're never resentful of the puppies. 3 girls, we name them Donna, Shelley, and Audrey after the 3 main girls from Twin Peaks. And strangely, the day they turned 7 weeks old is the day that David Lynch passed away. So we made sure to watch Twin Peaks with all 3 of them so they could understand their namesake. And, of course, I'm falling in love with all 3 of these puppies, but I'm really forming a connection with Donna. Audrey and Shelley both have short hair. Donna has this long, wild hair, especially up around her ears. She's also our best eater. She eats like twice as much as her sisters. So she eats a ton. She's really hairy. I don't know what it is we have in common, but there's something drawing us together. And Gina sees this connection forming, and every day she says, Paul, we can't keep a puppy. And I say, yes, I know that, Gina. You keep reminding me, but I can still clutch her to my chest every night and weep into her long, pretty hair, can't I? That is my right as a foster parent. But eventually the day does come where, we have to adopt the puppies out to their forever families. And the week that we officially adopt the puppies out is the same week that Gina and I step into a brand new fertility clinic for the first time and begin IVF. Since we had such a hands-on experience with having to raise those puppies, the rescue's very grateful for us, and they let us sort of vet the families that are interested in adopting the puppies. So we have a hand in choosing the family. So we know, that the puppies have gone to the best families imaginable, that are going to love them the most. But it still makes me sad that I can't see all three of them together every night, Like tonight, I can't watch Shelly play after she eats dinner until she just passes out from exhaustion, and I can't hold Audrey in the crook of my arm and rub her belly until she falls asleep like we used to do every night. But I can wrap this story up in just a few moments and then drive home and then swing the door open wide, and just like she's done every night for the past 7 months, I can watch Donna go absolutely ballistic when Daddy comes back home. Because Gina finally realized that sometimes being a supportive partner means putting your husband's happiness before you getting your own way. So we've had Donna for every single day of her life, and we're the only family that she's known, and it's going to stay that way. And, Donna might not have been the little girl that we were hoping would be put into our lives by the end of 2024, but she's the little girl we got. And I will be her father figure. I will be the one who loves her until the end of time.
Give it up for Paul. Give it up for all our tellers. That's Tracy, that's Christopher, that's Jess, that's Paul. Whether we were in outer space or whether we were at Scholastic headquarters or whether we were at an ICU or in a veterinary clinic, we hope you didn't panic too much. Read the pin. If this is something you'd like to do, you can pitch us at storycollider.org. We have a bunch of workshops there. You can sign up for our email list. The podcast is great. That comes out every week. There's 2 stories from shows all around the country that they 2 stories that they pair together. Hopefully we will have a show later this year. Some of those potential tellers are in the audience with us right now, which is fun for everyone. Thank you to LAist, everyone. So John Cohn, VP Audience of Community Engagement, Becca Stummy, who opened it up for us, senior producer back there, Tony Federico, who's our technical director, Lorena Nader, our audience experience manager, Colin Haskins, our events coordinator, Michael Leva, he's our tech assistant, he's the man behind the curtain tonight, and then our events interns, Gianna Tram and Michaela Perez. I said at the beginning that, the world kind of feels heavy right now, and Becca implied that as well. And the thing is, yeah, it is, but I really do feel like storytelling is like the cure to that, right? It lets us see a reflection of ourselves in the experiences of others, right? And if we can do that around something as seemingly abstract as science, I think we're really going to be okay. So thank you for being, we can't do this without you, right? We can't do this without the tellers. This is all of us in this together, right? Supporting one another. And I'll end just by saying, I like to just I always think of this. My dear friend John Good, he's in Atlanta. He's a host down there, and he always likens each of us to a swatch of fabric. And he says that these disparate swatches of fabric, which is each of us, kind of separate from one another, storytelling offers a narrative thread that allows us to weave ourselves together so we can keep warm. And that's just kind of what we had tonight across that whole range of experiences. So do me a favor, be kind to one another, and please tell the tellers what you thought. Connect with them. This is why we're here. It's community. Thank you for being here. I'm Bryan. I love you very much. Good night. Goodbye.